Hi everyone, this segment is on Real Estate Transactions 101. So today I'm going to talk about how you can purchase or sell a property from beginning to end. Before we dive into these steps, a little bit about myself. My name is Aman Bindra. I'm a banking and real estate lawyer here at KSW. I've helped developers and investors purchase and sell various types of property, whether residential or commercial. I've done small deals for a few $100,000. I've done large deals for billions of dollars. I've seen it all. I'd be happy to help out and answer any questions that you might have after watching this video. So we've done the introduction. Let's get started on the steps from beginning to end. The first step I want to discuss is the letter of intent, or the LOI for short. And this is more commonly found in commercial purchases, not so much residential. The LOI is basically just a short, non-binding document that kind of sets out the key business terms, and it just helps to streamline things and make things quicker later on down the road. So you can sign an LOI if you'd like, but it's not necessary. The more important step is the negotiation of the purchase and sale agreement, which is called the PSA for short. Sometimes it's called the contract of purchase and sale, or a CPS, but they're the same thing. So if you hear PSA or CPS, just know that it's talking about the same thing. The most important thing I want to stress to you about when you're negotiating the PSA is to get a lawyer involved as early as possible. I find that people sometimes sign these purchase and sale agreements without reading them, or they just sign a standard form given to them by their realtor or by the other side. And the problem with trying to be your own lawyer is that the law is very complex, and you're often dealing with issues that you're not even aware of. So I highly recommend that you get a lawyer involved early, structure the deal properly, and save yourself a lot of time, money, and headache down the road. Because I've seen people agree to things that they should not have agreed to when they're negotiating a PSA, like signing closing documents that they shouldn't have, or taking on way too much liability. So once the PSA is signed and the parties are happy, typically the offer is conditional for a period of time. It's not binding yet. There's usually about a 1 or 2 week condition waiver or due diligence period for residential purchases. And for commercial purchases, usually the parties will have anywhere from 1 to 3 months to basically do their research, get the approvals, and kick the tires on the property, essentially. Let's say during the due diligence period, or the condition period as it's known, the buyer will often do a property inspection, they'll get their mortgage financing in order, they'll have their lawyer help with things like reviewing the zoning bylaws or reviewing leases and things like that. As a seller, you might need to get the approval of your board of directors if you're a company, or you might need to find a replacement property to buy once you've sold this one. So if the parties aren't satisfied or they can't get their approvals by the due diligence deadline, the deal is effectively dead. Essentially, the seller can sell the property to someone else. But let's say the parties have done their due diligence, they've done their research, and they're happy with what they found. Then on or before the condition waiver date or the due diligence date, the parties will waive their conditions, and you might have heard that as removing subjects. The parties will essentially remove their subjects, and now that means that the deal is binding. So once the deal is binding, then the buyer's lawyer will draft the closing documents, and that includes things like the transfer documents that actually transfer the property, and things like the statement of adjustments or the GST certificates, which kind of deal with the money flow, dealing with the purchase. So once the buyer's lawyer has drafted the closing documents, then each of the parties, the buyer and the seller, will meet with their respective lawyers and get these documents signed up. And then on or before the closing date, or the completion date as some people call it, the buyer's lawyer and the seller's lawyer will exchange the signed closing documents. The buyer's lawyer will send the seller's lawyer the purchase price, so the purchase proceeds, and then the buyer's lawyer will file the transfer documents in the land title office. Sometimes instead of filing transfer documents, what the buyer will do is just buy the shares of the company that owns the land. There's pros and cons to that approach. You can save on taxes, but you might take on some liability. It's an option I'm happy to discuss on your next property purchase, so feel free to reach out if that's something you'd like to consider. So once the property has been transferred, that's when the buyer can take possession, and at that point the deal has officially completed. So that is the process of buying or selling a property in a nutshell. I hope that was helpful. If you have any further questions about real estate or banking, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Subscribe to our channel for our next and upcoming videos on banking and real estate topics. Again, my name is Aman Bindra. I'm a real estate and banking lawyer here at KSW, and I would love to help you with the next purchase or sale of real estate.